Welcome MTG Friends here. Now we have something extra spicy and special for you in this Commander deck tech. We're doing Kenrith the Return King. However, we are doing 3 different iterations of Kenrith. Now I was going to break this out into a 2-parter, but you know what? I'm feeling extra saucy. I'm going to change the format a little bit and not go through every single card. So we have 3 different versions of Kenrith. Kenrith is just one of those do good to all colors kind of situation. Kenrith is a 5-drop in white with a red pip. All creatures gain trample and haste until end of turn. A 2 where I put a 1/1 counter on target creature. We're not really going to utilize that one all that much. It's 3-drop. Target player gains 5 life. I mean, you're probably going to use that in a pinch if you need to get a little bit extra life. And it's 4-drop. Is target player draws a card. Meh. I mean, we have a lot of draw mechanics already. And it's 5-drop could help out. I did 6, but yeah, it's 5-drop. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under its owner's control. So under its owners. Just remember, don't try to target somebody else's because then they'll get it. So we're doing, the first one we're going to go through is an Infect deck package. The second one is a cEDH style power-based one. And then the third one is a budgetary, did I use the bad word budget? A budgetary green and dumb for the most part, just super fun deck that actually I'm going to put together just for fun with my play group. And it's just lots of fun. And Kenrith is at the helm of all 3. So let's start in with the Infect version. And before we get to that, make sure you hit subscribe, hit that like button. All right, moving on. So with Kenrith at the helm with the Infect, we have Proliferate package, we have Infect package, a few protection pieces, the maybe board for some swappable cards, the land base, which is pretty straightforward. Basically, it's the shock lands, the fetch land package, and then a few others for mana fixing. We got just one piece of graveyard, Shenanigans, which it's mainly Shenanigans because we're going to ping people. And then we have a few pieces of control and then a good amount of ramp with some draw and a few removal pieces. All right, so like I said, because we're going to shove all 3 into one, we're going to just sort of spot check this. So a Proliferate, we have all the things you would expect. Atraxa is in here, which allows for proliferating once it's on the battlefield. Plus, it's just a beefy creature that has flying. Now, Proliferate, in case you weren't completely familiar, Proliferate allows us to choose 1/1 counters or counters, including Infect, where we can choose whether to uptick them or downtick them if they're -1/-1 counters. So, Infect, in case you weren't super familiar, Infect is where we can hit our opponents for 10 Infect damage and they lose the game. All right, I don't know why I'm swinging my arm so much. All right, so Atraxa helps us get there once they have Infect damage. All right, Contagion Clasp is another one where it comes in and then it gives a -1 counter to a creature and then we can proliferate for 4. Same thing goes with the Contagion Engine, and the Evolution Sage is one of those where a land hits the battlefield, landfall, we can proliferate. So a lot of ways to proliferate, including Channeler, which is in the form of a creature, form of a sword, which if we do damage, then we can proliferate plus put a 1/1 counter on a creature. And then Thrumming Bird. All of these allow for the proliferate mechanic. So let's get into the Infect portion, and we won't go through every single one of these. Some of them are just dumb Infect creatures like Blight Mamba that can regenerate, Infect. We just want to try to get at least 1 Infect hit on each opponent and then just start going from there. Blighted Agent is unblockable. Contagious Nim, just an Infect creature that's a 3-drop. Corrupted Conscience, this one is where we can steal one of our opponent's creatures and give them Infect. Cyber Bearer is a 3-drop 2/3 with Infect. Flens or Might, also just a dumb minus. It's a 1/1 Infect lifelinker. Glistener Elf we can pop out real quick. So we want to get out there really quickly and start hitting them as quickly as possible. But then we also have some mid-level stuff like Hands of the Praetor. Hands of the Praetor is worth talking about for a second. It's got Infect for 4. Other creatures you control with Infect get +1/+1. And whenever you cast a creature spell with Infect, target player gets a poison counter. So we don't even have to hit them in the face. We can still give them a poison counter, which is very, very cool. All right, and then we got Icarats. Same thing. It's a 3-drop. Whenever Icarats enters the battlefield, each player gets a poison counter. So we don't even have to hit him with that either. And, you know, the mirror, same kind of stuff going on. It buffs if it gets blocked, that kind of stuff. Phyrexian Crusader is nice. It's a 3-drop with first strike and protection from red and from white. Phyrexian Swarmlord is actually pretty swank. It's a 6-drop good mid-game 4/4 drop. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 insect creature token that has Infect for each poison counter your opponents, and that's plural, has. So if each of your opponents has 2 each, that would be 6 poison counters. You'd have 6 of those. Start going wide on the board. Pretty great. All right, Plague Stinger, same kind of thing. Just a simple flyer with Infect. Priest of Norn, Infect, 1/4 Vigilancer. And whenever a source deals damage to Reaper of Shadowwood, that source's controller gets a poison counter. So there's just all sorts of ways to tease out those poison counters to win for the win, folks. For the win. Septic Rats, whenever Septic Rats attacks, if defending player has poison, it gets +1 until end of turn. And then Skithrix, which is so fun, is a 5-drop 4/4 flyer where you can give it haste with 1 black. Pretty awesome. Yes, indeed. All right, and then we got Viral Drake. It's got Infect, and it's got the option of Proliferate for 4. So just all around great creatures for Infect. All right, so we got Infect, we got Proliferate, a few pieces of the normal protection. Teferi's Protection, which you probably expected to see since we have some white. All of our stuff phases in and out. Heroic Intervention, this gives everything hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. And by all means, if I'm going through cards that you're not familiar with, you can always put in the comments if you have questions about them, etc., etc. A lot of these you have seen in our previous episodes, like Teferi's Protection and Heroic Intervention. This one you may not have seen, and that's Unbreakable Formation. It's creatures you control gain indestructible in a turn, which is super helpful if we're swinging with our Infect creatures, and if they're getting blocked, they're given the form of -1/-1 counters for the damage to their creatures, and then ours don't die. And if you main phase this one, they also get a +1/+1 counter on each of them. So that's pretty swank and pretty awesome. We got just 1 graveyard piece, kind of like a fixer if we need to pull something out of an opponent's graveyard, or we need to bring an Infect creature back out on our side of things. All right, Shenanigans, we got the Longbow. There's a couple others kind of like this, but this one I like. You can tap and then hit 1 damage to opponent. So you put this on an Infect creature. You don't have to swing with them. You tap it, ping him for 1 Infect damage. Equip 3. It's pretty good. All right, we got the typical ramp stuff. I went with the Talisman package. The Talisman, to get all of the different colors, it does 1 damage to you when you choose which color to do. And then we have the typical ones you'd expect. Arcane Signet, the birds. Chromatic Lantern turns all of our lands into any color we need, including itself. Then we got Smothering Tide, which punishes our opponent if they don't pay 2 per drawn card. And then we create a token that we can crack for mana. Hull Breacher, if they draw more than 1 card, we create tokens per. So that thing is very helpful. And depending on your play group, this one may or may not be one you include. If you're playing fairly powerful people in general in your play groups, then Hull Breacher is a very good one. All right, so we haven't hit control yet. So let's do that. We got Corrupted Resolve, counter target spell if controller is poison. Super fabulous card. Counter spell, of course. Dranith, it's in control because it's just janky Jankerson. Your opponent can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. And then we have a couple of the other counter spell actions. Fuel of the Cause is one of note because it also proliferates as well as counters a target spell. Okay, what else we got going on? So our land base is basically what you'd expect. You can check the link. It's got, I believe, most of the fetch lands, the shock lands, and then a few pathways in it. as well as some of them you would just expect to see, you know, like Reflecting Pool, anything for all the colors. And we got some draw mechanics, you know, Consecrated Sphinx, so we can draw 2 cards each opponent's draw. And new one, Esper Sentinel. This one will get you cards, I guarantee it. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless the player pays X, where X is Esper Sentinel's power. So even if it's 1, they have to decide and manage their mana for sure. And then we got all the other stuff like Rhystic Stealthy, Sylvan's Library, Tezzeret's Gambit for drawing and proliferation. So double duty on some of those too. And then we just have a few removals. Some you'd expect. Damnation for a reset button. Cyclonic Rift for a reset button. Assassin's Trophy. Deadly Rollick, etc., etc. And then all of the tutors you expect to see. Worldly Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Mystical Tutor, Enlightened Tutor. All the tutors that are going to tease out our instances, our sorceries, our creatures, etc., etc., etc. And then we also have Opposition Agent. I tend to play in play groups where people are searching their library a lot. You drop this onto the battlefield with Flash, and then you take control of their search, and you get to take what you decide you want to play. So basically, you're stealing their cards out of their library for however many they are tutoring for. Just bueno, bueno, bueno. So that is basically the Infect version of Kenrith. It's super janky and fun, and the minute you play this and surprise them with it being Infect, you will have a target on your back. So just hit them quick, hit them fast, and they'll scoop, and then you'll move on to the next game. Maybe you'll play the other Kenrith that they're thinking you're going to play Infect, and then you just go, oh, well, I have another version of Kenrith. So let's go ahead and hit up the next Kenrith. We'll just keep pushing through. So Kenrith, that's the one we just did. Let's go grab another. Let's see, which one is this? Hour of Power. Okay, so this one is the one that is competitive EDH. We'll dive into this a little bit more, but I want to leave room towards the end of the episode for the big and dumb. And in the description, I'll go ahead and put the timestamp of when all 3 of these are starting. Well, the first one is first, but I'll put the timestamp for the other 2 as well. All right, Saroni. All right, Kenrith as a cEDH type deck. So our land base is also going to be what you expect. We're running a little bit leaner with 31 because we are running a good amount of ramp. So all the things you'd expect in a fairly competitive, you know, we have our fetch lands, we have our ramp-alicious stuff like Ancient Tombs, Gemstone Caverns. The command tower is just great. The dualies, the original dual lands, all that kind of stuff. And then we actually are running a new one, at least as of this recording, which is Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. So the Urborg of Black, which we are also running, makes all lands swamps as well as whatever else they are. Well, we do it for force as well. So we got a lot of mana fixing going on in here. We got a lot of removal, the stuff you'd expect to see in a competitive deck. Toxic Deluge for that minus effect. Swords, yep. Natures to destroy artifacts or enchantments for 4. Just a lot of things you'd expect to see in here for a competitive build. Crows and Grip in case we don't want it countered. Force of Vigor, you know, just get that battlefield stabilized. Remove those enchantments and artifacts that are going to go off that do OTK 1-turn kills. Stuff to keep stuff out of your opponent's graveyards, like the Deathrite Shaman. Dam is a new one that I really liked and decided to include. Destroy target creature. Creature destroyed this way can't be regenerated. Plus it's got Overload 4, which means you can cast this spell for its overload cost. If you do, change its text by replacing all instances of target with each target. I mean, that's pretty swank and competitive. Assassin's Trophy, destroy a permanent, give them a land, and Abrupt Decay. Can't be countered, and you destroy a permanent that's 3 or less mana. So our removal is what you'd expect. Our mana is what you would expect. Let's go into the ramp stuff. Ramp is basically what you'd expect to see, such as Dockside Extortionist, Mana Dork, Birds of Paradise, Arcade and Signets, Ignoble Hierarch to get our black, red, green Hull Breacher so that we can keep people from getting extra cards and get those treasure tokens. I'm assuming if you're checking out this part of the episode that you already are familiar with most, if not all of these. Jeweled Lotus, Mana Crypt, for the 2 colors for flipping a coin, Mana Vault, Mox Diamond, just everything that you would expect to see, including Noble Hierarch to get our green, white, blue. All of our colors of the color rainbow. Paladin Creon, this thing is great. It's got a 5 blue flying when it comes into play. Untap up to 7 lands, and you can also return it to its owner's hand. So it's just a very sticky, relatively expensive card. 3 visits and Soul Ring. So our ramp package is fairly solid. Let's go into control, and there's a lot of it. So Angel's Grace is going to keep those 1-turn kills in check with split second. Can't lose the game this turn. Your opponent can't win the game, etc., etc. If you would get reduced to 0, it goes to 1 instead. So this is definitely a card that you would only be running really in a competitive environment. Otherwise, you're playing socially in that one, Archon of Emeria, this starts limiting their ability to play more than 1 card a turn, and their non-basic lands are coming in tapped, which is very, very powerful in a 3-drop. Aven Mind Sensor keeps them from tutoring more than your top 4 cards with Flash. Counterspell, of course. Dothy Voidwalker. This thing is pretty janky. It's got Shadow, which isn't the most important part. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with a void counter on it. Sacrifice it, choose an exiled card an opponent owns with a void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost. So this thing has all sorts of gross stuff going on with it. Dovin's Veto to counter a non-creature spell that can't be countered itself. Drannith Magistrate really is powerful. Keeps your opponent's commanders from hitting the battlefield and just keeps anything that's not in their hand from going off, like their graveyard, for example. Then we got a few other counter spells like Fierce Guardianship, Flutter Storm, counter target instant or sorcery spell unless its controller pays 1. Really helps with Storm and all other shenanigans people are doing. Force of Negation has really spiked in price, although it was a lot higher when it first came out. If it's not your turn, you can exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay the hard cost. Counter target non-creature spell. If that spell is countered with exile instead of putting in its graveyard. Force of Will, Mana Drain, Pack Negation. Be careful with Pack Negation, of course, because you got to come up with that 5 blue 3/3/3 3 colorless. If you don't, you lose the game. So just make sure you can pull it off. All right, and of course we got Time Raveler to shut down your opponent. Each opponent can't cast spells or can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery. So you can see the power in here. There's just lots of ways to keep them shut down. All right, we got a couple combo pieces. We got Animate Dead with Leonin Relic Warder. So if you have Mayhem Devil out there, you can go ahead and reanimate Leonin, which makes a feedback loop, which you sack, which means you do 1 damage. So you got those 3 out there. You can just ping them to death through Mayhem Devil. Very, very nice. Entomb helps you get into the graveyard whatever you need, like Leonin. Just a very nice combo. So getting that Leonin into the graveyard and then just comboing it off with Animate Dead, that is a very, very powerful combo that will win you the game. Yes, it will. All right, let's see. We're kind of jumping around here, but protection is what you'd expect. Veil of Summer, Teferi's Protection, Heroic Intervention. We've gone through Ramp. Let's see. Removal we've done. Tutors. The tutors and the draw. So in terms of draw, we got the Esper Sentinel new. You will be drawing cards out of this. They're going to have to work around it. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless they pay X, where X is its power. So that's really going to lock them down and put stuff in your hand. And then Mystic Remora, of course. allows you to do some more drawing. And again, because we're going over 3 different decks, I'm not going into the deep dive of each of these cards. Hopefully you are familiar. If you aren't familiar with some of these combos or some of these cards, just put them in the comments. I will answer any of your questions. If an opponent would draw a card, except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, instead that player skips that draw and you draw a card. So just other ways to mess up people and the battlefield. Heuristic Study. I mean, does this card need explanation? I mean, how many times have you been at the battlefield where like, you gonna pay your one? Gonna pay your one? Gonna pay your one? Okay, I'll draw. Wheel of Fortune. All players must discard their hand and draw 7 cards. And then all of the tutors you expect. Worldly Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Imperial Recruiter. I mean, just everything that you would expect to see here in form of tutors. Imperial Tutor is just always seems so interesting to me. Enters the battlefield, search your library for a creature card with power 2 or less, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. I mean, these are all just really powerful, especially one of these newer ones, Opposition Agents, which we talked about earlier in the episode. You take control of someone else's tutoring, and then you get to play that card anytime during the game, whether or not Opposition Agent is on the battlefield or not. So just very, very nice tutoring mechanics. All right, so we've gone over the competitive Kenrith build fairly streamlined and quickly. Everything you would expect to see in here. Let's move on to the big and dumb and fun version of this, which is Kenrith, the Return King. I can't remember what I called it. What did I call it? I hope it's something funny. Is it something funny? Probably not. Nope. Infect the commoners. That ain't it. All right, I'll try again. Where is it? Which one? It's going to be one of these. How about this one? Nope. Our power. All right, well, I only have one more choice. Boom, boom, shaka laka laka laka. Beep, bop, beep, boo doo. This one? All right, I'm gonna cut this part out. Probably, maybe it's this one. Here we go. All right, now for the 3rd iteration of Kenrith. And let me tell you, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do, because this was a lot of work. This was a lot of work doing the 3-for-1. Anyways, if you are already subscribed, you rock. All right, Kenrith the Return King, big and dumb. Dumb. I mean, they're not actually dumb, but it's just big creatures doing fun stuff. Most of this build is going to be in the green ilk. So we have a lot of ramp, but we do have a few that are in the other colors because, hey, why not? Alrighty, let's go ahead and talk about the land for a second. I really streamlined this. It's the only thing other than basic lands is Temple of a False God. And if you'll notice, the most expensive card in this whole build is the Commander itself, nearing $5. There is nothing else in this build that is even remotely close to $5. Still a fun build, though. All right, Bonder's Enclave. This is nice. Oh, my goodness. This is a $2 card. Draw a card, activate this ability only if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, which is going to be most of them. Command Tower is surprisingly cheap. I like it. Rogue's Passage to make our big, dumb creatures unblockable. And then Temple of the False God, which is in a lot of precons, actually. All right, let's go ahead and we got one tutor-specific card in here, and that's Traverse the Ulvenwald. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. Or if you have Delirium, which is 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyards, you know, land, instant, creature, whatever, sorcery, that kind of thing. Then you can search for a creature or land, reveal it, put it in your hand. So that's kind of nice. That's kind of nice indeed. All right, for our draw mechanics, we got Garrick's Uprising. This, if we have, when it enters the battlefield, if we have a creature 4 or greater powered, we draw a card. And then your creatures have Trample. Yeah, buddy. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, you also draw a card. All right, Garrick's Primal Hunger. This is where we can -3 it and draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. That's the main reason that's in there. Harmonize is surprisingly cheap. You draw 3 cards for 4. Hunter's Insight. This is choose target creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker this turn, draw that many cards. So you hit him for 8, you draw 8. I mean, that's kind of groovy. Return to the Wild Speaker. It's mainly in here for the draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control. It's a 5-drop. That's one of our more spendy cards at $1.50 as of this recording. All right, see the Unwritten. It's a 6-drop. Less than $1 as well. Reveal the top 8 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest in your graveyard. But ferocious. And I must admit, before I put this deck together, I didn't even know this card existed. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you may put 2 creature cards onto the battlefield instead of 1. I mean, for big and dumb creature deck, that's awesome. Ulvenwald Observer for 6. It's a 6/6. Whenever a creature you control with toughness 4 or greater dies, draw a card. I mean, yeah, buddy. All right, before we go into the big and dumb creatures, let's do shenanigans. We got Feldar Retreat, Landfall, which we can either create a 2/2 cat beast. Oh, another one that's almost $2. Or you can put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. So this is either if the board's been cleared and you need to start putting some blockers up, or if you just want to keep buffing stuff. I mean, that's just a funny, fun card. Totally swappable in this build, by the way. Swiftfoot Boots to give our big dumb creatures some hasty hastersons. Well, and hexproof for that matter. All right, and Zendikar's Royal 5-drop landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 green elemental creature token. All right, we've done land, we've done tutoring. Let's do ramp real quick. All right, we got lots and lots of ramp in the form of just getting land and stuff out there. Arcane Signet, of course. Command Sphere, which is super cheap. Cultivate. Yeah, we got to put Cultivate in there to go grab 2 lands. Yeah, buddy. Darksteel Ignite to add a color of our choice. We need some mana fixing. Druid of the Anima. You can tap for red, green, or white. It's a 2-drop, so it ain't too shabby. Fairhaven Elf for 3. We can go fetch up a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tap. Golgari Signet. We have a few signets in here. Signet. Kodama's Reach to go grab up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put 1 on the battlefield, tap, and the other in your hand. Mana Dork. Migration Path out of Ikoria. That's for 4. You can search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield. So we want to ramp. Super duper quick, which is why we also have ramp int growth. Search library for basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tapped. Crack this thing for a basic land. Search for tomorrow. Suspend 2, and then we go search for a basic land. Put it into play, yo. Soul Ring, Solemn Simulacrum, also under $2. Wood Elf, so we can go search for a forest card, put it on the battlefield. Notice it's untapped, by the way. Yavimaya Elder for 3. I was surprised how cheap this was. When Yavimaya Elder dies, you may search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put them in your hand, then shuffle. Sacrifice it and draw a card. So there you go, folks. So we got removal, and then we'll hit the big and dumb creatures, which is like the funnest part of this whole deck. We got Casualties of War, which is 2 Golgari colors. Destroy target artifact, creature, enchantment, land, planeswalker. We can do all of them if we so choose. Just a very nice removal spell. And I was shocked to see that it's under $1. I mean, I was kind of sad because I have a few of those, but you know, it has been reprinted a lot. Cleansing Nova for 5. Destroy all creatures, destroy all artifacts and enchantments. This one is definitely if you need to reset the board, or if you got big and dumb out and you just need to get rid of people's enchantments and artifacts. Very nice card. I really don't know why this is so cheap. Maybe it's also been reprinted to oblivion. Crows and Grip is nice. Split second, which means it can't be countered. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Then some old school removal like Mortify. Destroy target creature or enchantment. Undo Inversion, which can be dropped as a tapped land, or for 6 white, destroy all non-land permanents. A definite reset button. Putrefy as well. Been reprinted to oblivion, so it is super cheap. And there's a couple other more expensive, better cards anyways. But hey, destroy target artifact or creature. It can't be regenerated. Rout. I love this card and it's so cheap. You may cast Rout as though it had flash if you pay 2 extra. Destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. So you got a whole big board swinging at you for game over. You can rout them, destroy all of them, and then you bought yourself some time and maybe even the game. Scour from existence. It's a little spendy, totally swappable out of this deck. Exile Tyrant permanent for 7. But because we're ramping so much, this should not be hard to cast. And then same kind of idea, Unstable Obelisk, because we are ramping so severely. We can tap it for 7 and sacrifice it to destroy target permanent. Now let's go into the big and dumb. Big and dumb. And some of these you are going to be surprised are relatively powerful for not a lot of financial bread and butter, yo. All right, Aggressive Mammoth. 3 green, Trampler. Other creatures you have are Trampler. Are Tramplers, yes. Annoyed Altasaur. It's got Cascade, Reach, Trample. Cascade just means that you can cast it without paying its mana cost if it's less than its power. Or its casting cost. So 5, 6, 7. So a 6 or less you get to put onto the battlefield as well. Pretty bueno, dude. Bueno indeed. Archetype of Endurance. It's a 6, 7, 8 drop. No, actually I had to count that for some reason. Creatures you control have hexproof. Creatures your opponents control lose hexproof and can't have or gain hexproof. Yeah. Oh, I really like that card, which is why we're spending the extra 20 cents on that. You can tell I don't do budget decks very often. All right, Artisan of Kozilek. It is a 9-drop 10/9. Whenever you cast a spell, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with Annihilator 2. I love Annihilator. Whenever this creature attacks, defending player sacrifices 2 permanents. So awesome. Dude, and this thing is like less than $1. That's amazing. I mean, it is a 9-drop though. All right, Bane of Bala-Ged, 7-drop. Whenever Bane of Bala-Ged attacks, defending player exiles 2 permanents he or she controls, which is in essence Annihilator. I mean, Annihilator is sacrifice. Bala of Ged is exile. So, I know there's a small difference. All right, Carnage Tyrant. Carnage Tyrant can't be countered. Trample hexproof. Oh, I really like this, and we have something that works with it. Dawnglade Regent. When Dawnglade Regent enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. As long as you're the Monarch, permanents you control have hexproof. So we have one other Monarch card in here, which is actually really, really powerful and combos up with some of our stuff. Atali Primal Storm, one of the very few red pipped creatures. Whenever Atali Primal attacks, exile a top card of each player's library. Then you may cast any number of those spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost. I mean, what? That's powerful. I don't care how you look at that. It's powerful. Galta Primal Hunger. Yes, 10 green, but spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control. So, in reality, you're probably going to be casting this for 2 green. Yes, you are. Yes, you are, folks. And the whole battlefield is just going to go, ugh. All right, Gruul Rage Beast. Whenever Gruul Rage Beast or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, that creature fights target creature an opponent controls. That's right. All right, Hamlet Back Goliath. The other thing I like about this deck is you're going to be playing creatures that you normally probably wouldn't, which, you know, that's just fun, which means that your opponents aren't going to be expecting things like Hamlet Back Goliath. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you may put X 1/1 counters on Hamlet Back Goliath, where X is that creature's power. I mean, I don't care what you say. That is a hilarious card. Kolga the Tyrant Ape. When it enters, you fight up to 1 a target creature you don't control. And whenever Kolga attacks, destroy target artifact or enchantment defending player controls. I mean, for $1 financially in a big and dumb deck, that's pretty bueno. Oblivion Sower. When you cast Oblivion Sower, target opponent exiles top 4 cards, and then you can play any of those lands if he does that to lands. Oran Reef Hydra. I mean, some of these you may be familiar with. It's got landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on it. If it's a forest, put 2 instead. Now this is funny. I love this. For 6, it is a 5/5. Whenever another creature with power 5 or greater enters the battlefield into play under your control, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Oh, so just keep filling your hand back up with this craziness. Primeval Protector. It's a 10/11, but it costs 1 less for each creature your opponent controls. When Primeval Protector enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control. Then a few more in here. Rampaging Ballast. Whenever you put a land, you create a 4/4 green beast token. Sandworm Convergence. Creatures with flying can attack you or planeswalkers you control. At the beginning of your end step, create a 5/5 worm. I mean, dude, that's crazy. All right, Soul of the Harvest. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under control, draw a card. Yay! Terastodon. Whenever enters the battlefield, you may destroy up to 3 target non-creature permanents. For each permanent put into a graveyard this way, its controller creates a 3/3 elephant. So if you need to get rid of stuff, that's the way to do it. Just a few more. Now this is one that isn't actually big and dumb, but it becomes big with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on it. And there's a lot of landfall. However, if you want another big and dumb creature instead of that one, just swap it out of the maybe board. All right, Tornado Elemental. When it enters, do 6 damage to each creature with flying. You may have it assign combat damage as though it weren't blocked. So you can swing, and if it gets a chump block, you can not give it that creature the damage. You can just give it to the opponent. And Ulamog's Crusher. Annihilator 2, more Annihilator. It has to attack each combat if able. An 8/8 bad boy. All right, now we've dealt with removal. We dealt with everything else. The nice little combo that I was talking about earlier is Court of Bounty. So when Court of Bounty enters the battlefield, you become monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. If you're the monarch, instead, you may put a creature or land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So this really synergizes well with all the other shenanigans we got going on. It is just fun had by all, even if it's your opponent. And now, we do have a maybe board over here if you wanted to go in a different direction, or if you want to do fun things like take over an opponent's turn with Worst Fears. There's just a few other nice little things to choose from over here. So that is the 3rd iteration of Kenrith. So to recap, we got the Infect version of Kenrith, we got the high-powered cEDH version, and then we got this very budgetarily sound Kenrith, which is actually the one I'm going to play with next week because it's just hilarious. And you know, I'm usually playing with some of these more powerful ones, so it'll be nice and refreshing. See if I can pull it off against 3 opponents, hitting them with just these giant, ridiculous creatures. All right, well, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking it out. Thanks for supporting the channel. Check out our other episodes. MTG Friends, yo. What?